in the chat box or thumbs up. Okay, great. So, welcome to the fourth session of our Essentials Concept Clarity series. And I am quite happy to share that we have almost covered one third of this series already because, as you know, there are 12 sessions in total. And today is the fourth one, which means that just the two-thirds of the series is left. And I hope that this has been helpful for you. I hope that you have learned something. I hope you got conceptual clarity. That's the main goal of this session. And I also hope that you learned new things which you did not know previously. I hope that the mock tests, the presentations, everything are being helpful for you in your preparation. So the topic that we'll be starting today is motivation and emotion. And once we start, like I give you guidance in every session, we'll do that this time as well. So time and again, we have introduced ourselves. We are the Cyclopedia, and you can of course read more about us on our website. And primarily, we help student preferences like CET, PG, UCNet, MPhil, and so on. And our batch for CUTPG psychology is going to start very soon, in just a few weeks from now. And early bird discount is almost about to get closed. We have very few seats left, probably 5 or 6, I guess. So if you're waiting, then probably you can just enroll in that if you're interested. So yes, let's just begin with motivation and emotion. And as I teach you about motivation, there is this very layman understanding, very general understanding of what motivation is. A lot of people say that I am not feeling motivated to study. I am not feeling motivated to wake up early in the morning. I'm not feeling motivated to eat healthy. But that is just very general understanding of motivation. In psychology, there is an entire chapter on it. So we will be understanding motivation from the psychological perspective in terms of what different theorists have said, in terms of the different definitions that have come up. So, first thing about motivation is I'd like to tell you that whenever somebody is motivated, that motivation is always and always stemming from a place of deficiency. It is always stemming from some kind of need. So, I'll give you an example here. Let's say that you are feeling motivated to eat some dessert, you're feeling motivated to eat brownies and cupcakes. Why is that exactly happening? Because probably inside your body, there is some deficiency of blood sugar, right? That deficiency of blood sugar is making you crave that brownie, which is why you would open Zomato, you would order anything that you want to eat, and so on. Right? So let's understand it in a step-by-step manner. I'll also write 1, 2, 3, 4 for you so you can track the steps progressively in the correct order. So as I said, motivation always arises when there is a need or a deficiency. तो जब भी आपके अंदर एक need होगी, आपके अंदर एक deficiency होगी, so what will that lead to? Nobody likes to be deficient in something, right? And that is not a very pleasant state to be in. So of course the person will feel very tense, or will go in a state of tension. So right now we've taken the example of brownie and cupcakes. But let's say that someone is feeling very lonely. They're not having a lot of social contact. Again, there is a deficiency of social contact. Again, there is a need of social contact. And because nobody likes to feel lonely, that is going to lead to an internal state of tension. Okay, fine. Now, what will you do with it? What will you do with this tension? Of course, you're not going to sit with it just like that. You will do something, you will act upon it, you will engage in some kind of behavior that will help you achieve your end goal. Whether your end goal is to go to a party, or whether your end goal is to order some desserts to manage the cravings, you will engage in some goal directed behaviors so that the tension can be reduced. Right? So first need or deficiency came, then that need and deficiency led to some tension. Then you got so frustrated through that tension that you thought that now I have to do something about it. Now I have to engage in some goal directed kind of behavior so that you can achieve whatever outcome you want to achieve. Right? So this is a little context, this is a little background as to what motivation is and how the cycle and all happens. But to understand it through the very formal definition that our textbooks like Cicerelli and all give. So it is defined as a process. Why is it a process? Because if you look at it, it is very circular in nature. Do you think that once the person has eaten the cupcake, they will never feel hungry again after that? Or they will never crave desserts after that? That will be the end of it. What do you think? एक बार उसने खा लिया ब्राउनी कपकेक जो भी उसको खाना था, will they not feel hungry again? Will they not crave it once again? What do you think? They will crave it again after some time, right? Yes, they will. So that is why they will again have the same need and deficiency. Again, that will lead to tension. Again, they will indulge in goal-directed behavior. Again, they will do something to reach that outcome. So that is why it is called process, because it is very continuous in nature. It's not like do something to reach your end goal destination, final stop, that is it. It's not like that. Rather, it is very circular process that keeps on happening again and again and again. That is why important to understand that motivation is a process. Now, in that process, you will start the activity. In this case, let's take that example of, let's say, going to the gym, okay? So you start the activity. You look for gyms in your location and then you probably go to buy some gym clothes for yourself. So you start it. Directed. What does directed mean? You will finally get up, you will set an alarm, you will get up, you will wear your clothes, you will wear your shoes, and then you'll get out of your house and then you will reach that place. अब ऐसा तो नहीं है कि आप एक दिन जिम गए चलो खत्म हो गया मोटिवेशन. You have to be consistent there. So that is why you have to maintain the motivation process. It's not like you can be motivated one day and then the next day you will lose your motivation and then you will go after 1 month. It's not like that. You have to maintain your preparation, motivation, whether it's going to the gym or whether it is entrance preparation also. Let's take the example of entrance preparation. It will feel more relatable to you. So if you're preparing for entrances, the starting point can be that you enrolled yourself in Essential series. Okay, you have started that. Directed the process, meaning that you are consistently attending every single class that we are hosting for you, right? Then maintenance, because you have to stay consistent over the past 6 to 8 months. You probably might enroll yourself in our course or you might attend our classes that we do. So maintenance means keeps on going on and on. And at the end, whatever need was there, whether it was physiological in terms of the hunger or psychological in terms of the social contact, that will be fulfilled. Right? So that is all about what motivation is, the background of it, right? And I hope that you have understood this. There's this flowchart also in the PPT. It just shows that the person was feeling hungry, so they had the physical need of hunger. Then they will, of course, direct it. They'll go to the kitchen and they will keep on finding something or they'll keep on cooking something for themselves. That is why it is getting maintained and sustained. So that is all about motivation. And just one last thing, it actually comes from the Latin word movere, which means to move. So what all did we understand from this slide? That it is a process. It's not like a linear journey that comes to an end once you reach your goal. It is a circular process. It keeps on happening. You start certain activity, you direct towards that activity, and you have to keep on maintaining that activity. You cannot leave it and go away in between. Why do you do it? Because you want to meet certain need of yourself, whether it is a physiological need or a psychological need. And the 1, 2, 3, 4 steps that I told you, keep that in mind also. Need or deficiency leading to tension, that leading to goal directed behavior, and that leading to finally something known as homeostasis. So does someone know what is homeostasis? You can write that in the chat box. What is homeostasis? Yes, homeostasis is a state of internal balance. It is a state of equilibrium. Yes. So we have to reach this state of homeostasis only. And as we know, homeostasis is not a constant thing that once you have reached homeostasis, you will stay there for the rest of your life. You can very well reach the whole, like the whole circular process can start as I told you. Right. Okay. So I hope that you have understood this. Now can we move to the next slide? If yes, you can respond with a thumbs up. Okay, I have received only three responses from Purvi, Heer, and Sarah. What about the rest of you? Are you following through? Anvesha, yes. What about the rest? Do you have any questions? Have you understood everything about motivation? Yes, exactly. So this is the kind of participation that I want because there are about 70 of you. I don't want just five or six to be responding. This class is for everyone. Okay, yes, thank you for the participation. I appreciate that. Okay. Now we have understood what motivation is, and there are different types of motivation also. Okay, broadly, they can be classified into extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. Now, as the name suggests, extrinsic. Extrinsic meaning external. External meaning something that is coming from outside. But intrinsic, on the other hand, meaning internal. Something that is coming from the inside. So I'm going to take a few examples and you have to identify whether this is a case of external motivation or intrinsic motivation. So let's say that there is a student in class 12 and the parents are saying that you have to get yourself enrolled in NEET or engineering college, so go and prepare for JEE. So does that sound more like extrinsic motivation or intrinsic motivation? The parents are saying that if you get a good rank, listen to the example first. Parents are saying that if you get a good rank in JEE or in NEET, then we will gift you a car. Or if you don't get a good rank in NEET or JEE, then we will get you married. And then you'll have to do that for the rest of your life. So what does that sound like? Extrinsic. Yes. But what if the child is like, I love studying science from my own childhood school days, and it is so enjoying, pleasurable for me to learn more and more about the human body, and I just have a lot of fun while doing that. I just get lost in the whole process. It's so interesting. Yes, that is intrinsic. So, what main difference did we notice here between extrinsic and intrinsic? In extrinsic motivation, we are doing something because either we are getting some external reward from someone else, or rather, it is helping us avoid or escape an unpleasant situation that we don't want to be a part of. So, when the parent is saying that if you score a good mark in JEE, then I will give you a car, or if you get bad marks in that exam, then I will get married. Nobody, like the student doesn't want to get married, right? So that student is avoiding or escaping an unpleasant situation. Yes. Okay. But when the child is studying because they themselves enjoy this process, because they themselves want to work in that area, it is very fun for them, it is very satisfying for them, and they enjoy the challenge that it brings. Here, challenging doesn't mean in a negative connotation, it means that they enjoy the challenge that it brings. So it is internally rewarding, but whether it is externally rewarding or it helps them avoid or escape something. So is my voice breaking for everybody or just a few of you? Okay, let me see what I can do about it. There is disturbance. Okay, is it fine now? Someone said it was breaking before. Is it fine now? Okay, then let's continue. If you feel like it is breaking again, you can let me know. Okay. Fine. So this much we have seen extrinsic comes from external environmental factors, but intrinsic comes from internal factors, and the person only enjoys them. Okay. Now tell me that according to you, which type of motivation feels more long lasting or it feels more sustainable in the long run? When the parent keeps on telling you, you will get the car, so go and study, or if the child themselves enjoys studying science. Yes, intrinsic motivation is much more long lasting in nature and it is self sustaining also, meaning you don't need any external reward or something to sustain that motivation. You can sustain it by yourself only. Okay. And it continues even when there is no external reward because it is very internal, right? But on the other hand, extrinsic motivation is very much short term in nature. Okay, so my voice is breaking again. Just give me a minute. Let me see what I can do about it. I am actually using the highest speed network. So is it still breaking? How much is it breaking? Can you not understand anything at all? Okay, fine. Again, you can let me know if you're having any difficulty. Okay. So I was saying that extrinsic motivation is not that long lasting. It is not that sustaining as intrinsic motivation. So it is much more short term, we can say. It's not that sustaining also. And once the parent says ki we are not gonna give you the car anymore, just go away, then of course that motivation will reduce more and more, right? I was preparing for that exam because you said you will give me the car, but now you're saying that you will not give me the car, so now I'm not interested in studying anymore. Okay. So motivation is dependent on external reinforcement and it may decrease when the rewards are removed. Right. Now, in extrinsic motivation, of course, the child is studying because they want the car, meaning they are getting something in return. They are doing it to achieve something. So that is why it is also called instrumental in nature. Why instrumental? Because this extrinsic motivation is instrumental in helping you get something from outside. But intrinsic motivation, you're not doing it to get something from the outside. You're doing it because you yourself enjoy the activity. So it's more about the activity rather than the car. It is more about studying because studying as a process you really enjoy. It is more about studying rather than the car gift. So that is why it's called inherent in nature because activity of studying itself is the goal because you love it so much. Yes, Manvi.
Yes, Vidya, I was saying that you can try to turn off your video. Sometimes it works when the voice is breaking.
Yeah, I can try that. And again, I'm not sure why it's happening. I'm at the highest speed network. I'm close to the network as well. So probably it could be due to something else, some other issue. So is it fine now? I have temporarily closed my camera. And if my voice is not breaking for a longer time, I'll try to turn it on again. Okay. So just to summarize this slide, what are the key points that we saw? Extrinsic, why is it called extrinsic? Because it is coming from external factors or environmental factors, but intrinsic, meaning it is coming from internal factors. You yourself enjoy that task. You yourself enjoy that activity. Why are you having extrinsic motivation? Because someone said, I will give you a reward, or it is helping you avoid or escape an unpleasant situation you don't want to be a part of. But intrinsic motivation, you enjoy the activity, it's fun, challenging, and satisfying. Extrinsic, doing it to get something out of it in return, hence instrumental in nature. But in intrinsic, we saw that here the activity in itself is so enjoyable that activity itself is the goal. That's why it's called inherent in nature. And as I also told you that once the parents say you won't get the car anymore, so the child will stop studying. So it is dependent on external reinforcement, and once the external reinforcement is taken away, the person might not feel that motivated. But intrinsic motivation is more self-sustaining. It is not dependent on any external reward. It is long-lasting. It keeps on continuing. So that is all about the types of motivation, and I hope that this is clear for you with so many examples. Now, just one last concept, which is a small one before we get into the main theory of emotion, which is motivation, sorry, which is Maslow's. So, what are reinforcers? Reinforcer is anything that basically motivates you to do something, it meets one of your needs. Okay, so what is a reinforcer? Reinforcer is something that meets your needs. There are so many things that meet our needs, right? Food is something that meets our needs. Water is something that meets our needs. And let's say that meeting friends is something that meets our needs. Need of affiliation, need for connection. For a lot of people, money is also something that meets their needs because once you have money, you can buy anything that you want. Once you have money, you can buy food for yourself and eat that. And then food will help you reduce the hunger and all that you had. So that brings us to primary reinforcers and secondary reinforcers. Okay. Now, primary reinforcers are those things that once you consume them or once you use them, they will directly satisfy your needs, which are the most basic, important, and survival needs, right? So, can you give me some example of the basic survival needs that a person has? Yes, water is the basic survival need. What else is there? Yes, thirst, basically. Hunger is the basic survival need. Sleep is also a basic survival need. Yes. So, if you are eating food, food is an object that once you consume it, it will directly satisfy your basic survival needs. Water is something that once you drink it, it will directly satisfy your basic survival needs. Sleep also. Once you sleep, it is something that will directly satisfy your basic survival need. There is no mediator on between, or there is no third party in between, if I can say that. You eat, need is satisfied. You drink, need is satisfied. You sleep, need is satisfied, no third party in between. So, does that sound more like an example of primary reinforcer or secondary reinforcer? You can just say P or S in the chat box. Yes, that is an example of primary reinforcer. But what about someone who does not know how to cook? Right? I am feeling hungry, but I don't know how to cook. So, what should I do? Oh, but I have money. So, maybe I can use that money and I can order something for myself. Right? So, here is there the presence of something in between? Is there something in between money and the food that is actually received by me? Yes. What is there in between? Of course, the fact that you're ordering it. Yes. So all of those objects or all of those reinforcers that cannot really directly meet your needs, but if you associate them with something else, if you associate them with an actual primary reinforcer, then it can meet your need. Right? So money, does that sound like a primary or secondary reinforcer? Again, you can say P or S. Yes. So let me write it down also for here so it's easier to understand. So if we are saying food or if we are saying water, we know that it directly meets the needs. But what about money? You cannot eat money directly, right? You need to use that money for something. So you have money with yourself, but using that money, you will order food. And using that food, then only you will meet your need. So see, that is why it is called a secondary reinforcer, because it is getting its importance, it is getting its reinforcing value by linking it, by associating with some other kind of primary reinforcer. You have money, you buy food, then need is met. You have money, you buy water, then your need is met. Right? So you have to associate the secondary reinforcer with some other primary reinforcer, then only it will have its value. नहीं तो क्या करेगा कोई पैसे का अगर आप उसको यूज नहीं कर सकते, right? So as it just follows, primary reinforcers have a very direct and immediate connection to our survival. Just take food, eat it, that's all. But secondary reinforcer have an indirect connection. Why? Because something is coming in between and you must have a primary reinforcer. You must link it with the money, then only it will fulfill whatever need you have. Now tell me, from primary and secondary reinforcer, which one is universal to all? Universal to all cultures, meaning that no matter whether you're Indian, Chinese, Japanese, everybody will have like the same level, and it is very innate also, like it's very biological, and it's not something that needs to be learned. Every child will have it since the time that they are born, and you don't need to teach them that, do you know you need to drink water? Do you know that this is why you need to eat food? Yes, so that's why primary reinforcers are innate among all species. All animals, all humans do feel hungry as a very innate need from the time that they're born. These are unlearned because we don't need to teach anybody to feel hungry. Their body makes them feel hungry automatically and universal because everybody across the globe has this. But secondary reinforcers, see, things depend from culture to culture. Different cultures have different notions and ideas about money, about food, and these things have to be learned. They are conditioned. They can vary from culture to culture. So that is why secondary reinforcers also depend upon your learning, your conditioning, what you have been taught. But primary reinforcers, because they're so biological, it doesn't really matter whether there is some kind of learning or not, because everybody needs food, water, sleep, warmth, and sex despite what they have been taught. These are basic natural biological needs. But money, how much money do you need varies from culture to culture. There are some cultures in India that are quite modest. They focus more on happiness more than money. They would do well with decent amount of money also. But there are some cultures which focus too much on money. Praise is also something that varies from household to household. So these things are quite learned. Grades, approval, social recognition. For some families, it's important that what does society think about them, and they need their kids to get that recognition from them. But for others, it doesn't matter that much. That's why these things are more learned. So I hope that you have understood this topic also. If yes, can we finally move to our theories? And I need a yes from everybody, not just the usual people. Okay, great. Now, there are a lot of theories in the motivation chapter, and all of them are equally important. It's not possible for us to cover all the theories in today's class, of course, because it usually takes me about 3 sessions to complete motivation chapter in the full course. So that's why today we are focusing only on Maslow because it is one of the important ones. Now, as I said, there are a lot of theories. You can classify those theories into biological theories and psychosocial or psychological theories. Now, what is the difference between them? It's there in the name itself. As the word biological suggests, this is to do with any motivation that is occurring as a result of your innate factors, like your biological causes, your hormones, your neurotransmitters, your brain structures. So, if you are feeling hungry, a biological explanation of that could be that there are a lot of hormones or there are a lot of chemicals and bodily substances that are causing that. There is a certain brain structure, it is called the lateral hypothalamus. We also have the ventromedial hypothalamus. This is responsible for increasing hunger, and ventromedial hypothalamus is responsible for reducing hunger. So that's a separate topic, just came to my mind, so I'm telling you that's why. So, according to the biological perspective, these parts of the brain are causing hunger. Then the role of glucose, insulin, leptin, ghrelin, all of those things is also there. So whenever we are explaining it through some biological reason, then it is a biological theory. But on the other hand, psychosocial is more to do with what are the psychological factors or what are the social factors around you. So if someone wants to get admission into a good college, is it because of some recognition or approval that they will get from society? Or if someone who wants to join the Cockroach Janta Party that has recently come, I was seeing that I find that so funny. Do you think that is more towards the biological motive or psychosocial motive? And why would anybody want to join the Cockroach Janta Party in the first place? What do you think could be the reason of joining that party? I saw that that page is pretty new, but in the morning they had 4 million followers and now they are about to reach 5 million followers. So why would someone want to join that? Because probably a sense of belonging comes there, a sense of relatability comes there that everybody is doing this, so I also want to do it because it makes me feel belonged and I'm getting some social interaction, I'm getting some affiliation basically. Or, actually, 5.7, that's like a big number. Now, I saw a video where they were actually cleaning the Yamuna River also. So probably they wanted to be a part of some movement, or they wanted to just go there out of curiosity that how will it be like for me if I also join a party or movement like that. Back then in Nepal and Bangladesh, the Gen Z were doing this. So how will it be like if Indians also do it? So maybe they want to explore. Maybe they want to go out of curiosity. Maybe they want to get power by being in that party. Maybe they want to make new connections. Maybe they are doing it to feel belonged, hence the affiliation, right? So that is the psychosocial motive. So I hope that using these examples you can understand it better. Biological theories always say that it's happening because of things going on in your body, physiological mechanisms, but psychosocial or psychological are to do with anything from the environment. Now we will be starting with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And do you think Maslow's hierarchy of needs will go under the physiological or psychological theory of motivation? So I'm glad to see so many of you say both, because there are a combination of needs there, right? Starting with the lowest one, basic physiological needs, then you go upwards, you find some higher psychological needs. So that is why both of them, right? So can you type and tell me one by one that what are the needs given in the Maslow's hierarchy? One by one, if you can tell me, because in the entrances they ask chronological based questions. You have to arrange any stages or any needs to be there in the chronological order. So that is why we need to know this. So don't give me fragmented, give me one by one. So the first one that you are writing is the physiological needs. Okay. Then people are saying that safety needs are there. Okay, what is there after safety needs? Okay, Uzma, you've done a great job by writing all of them. Basic physiological needs, then safety and security needs. But Uzma, you ate one need in between. Someone wrote it. Yes, Purvi, love and belongingness. Yes. Then after that comes your esteem needs. Then comes your self-actualization. So are there these many needs only, or have we left out on few needs? Let me count once again. Basic physiological needs, safety and security, love and belongingness, esteem needs, self-actualization. So have we left anything, or are these all? So some people like Priya and Ria and Grace, Sarah, Bhavya, yes, I'm quite glad that you're able to point out these three new needs also. So, how many of you were aware that these are not the only needs in Maslow's theory? There are three more needs: cognitive, aesthetic, and transcendence. Did you know about this, or is this the first time that you are hearing about that? So for some of you, it's the first time, and for some of you, you already knew it. So I have turned my camera on because I find it difficult to teach with my camera off. But if my voice breaks again, just let me know and I will turn it off again. Okay. So about Maslow's needs, there were three more needs that were added later: cognitive, aesthetic, and transcendence needs. And sometimes students think that this is only there in Maslow that we need to do, and there's nothing else. But as you study, the more that you go in depth, you realize that there were so many more things about Maslow that I did not know about, and this is also important. I need to do this also. So especially in this topic, there will be many such things which will be new for you today. So that's why you can listen carefully and you can make a note of it. So first thing, of course, this has been given by Abraham Maslow, who is the founder of Humanistic School. And initially, he had given all of the needs, he had just proposed them. But later, there were some professors who used to teach the MBA students. They are the ones who arranged it in the form of a pyramid. Okay. So, one clarification: sometimes people think that when Maslow originally gave his theory, he is the one who arranged it in a pyramid, but that is not true. He just gave it like that. And it was arranged in the pyramid by MBA professors. Okay. And do you know that Maslow's hierarchy of needs? One interesting point that I know right now is that it is created by taking multiple qualitative interviews of some great personalities. Do you know anyone person like that Maslow talked to in order to formulate his theory? Okay, unfortunately, I have to turn my camera off again. तो अब बंद कर दिया मैंने कैमरा, अब ठीक है? ओके, नेक्स्ट क्लास से कैमरा का कुछ करना पड़ेगा, बट प्लीज आंसर द क्वेश्चन दैट आई हैड आस्क्ड. आई वाज आस्किंग यू दैट Maslow has created his theory by taking multiple qualitative interviews of some great personalities. Do you know any person like that Maslow might have talked to create his theory? एक गैस ही ले लो आपके हिसाब से हिस्ट्री में कौन से ऐसे लोग हैं जिनको बहुत पूछते हैं। नहीं, आइंस्टाइन तो नहीं, आइंस्टाइन तो बहुत पहले की बात हो जाएगी। वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट, नो नॉट फ्रॉइड, अरे फ्रॉइड तो अलग ही टाइम से है। यस, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट नेल्सन मंडेला एंड महात्मा गांधी। So I think this point is not there in the PPT, but it just came to my mind right now. That's why I wanna mention that he had taken qualitative interviews of different people to create his theory. And these two people, I remember, he had talked to them, he had heard from their experiences, and on the basis of that, he had integrated that into his theory. We will come to the criticism of this theory, Ria, shortly. Yes. So these are things for your own knowledge actually. अब entrance exams में कोई हमसे ये नहीं पूछेगा कि उसने बताओ कहाँ से theory चुराई है. We can of course know these things to give due credit to those who deserve it, but let's come back to this. We will critique his theory properly also later. Okay, so coming back to Maslow, the first point I told you that he's not the one who arranged it in the pyramid. It was done by MBA professors. Secondly, he generated this theory by taking qualitative interviews of people like Nelson Mandela and Gandhi. Right. Okay, now anybody who is a humanist, they anyway have this belief that every single individual has this innate need within themselves that they want to self-actualize. So that thing applies to Maslow's theory also. Okay. Now, there are some key terms in Maslow's theory which you might not be aware of. The first one is succession progression. So, how do you think a person progresses from one need to the other? Let me go to that page where the needs are there. Yes. How do you think a person progresses from the most bottom need to the upward needs? Do I have to go in a step-by-step manner like this? Or can I jump like this? Do you think it is more like the first approach or the second approach? Yes, it is like the first approach. So what does that mean? This is what it means by succession progression. Succession, successive meaning one after the other, progressive meaning how do you move through it. So that is what succession progression means. That if you want to move to the next need, then first you need to fulfill the need that is below to that. And if you are not fulfilling the below need, then of course you cannot move to the next step. So, according to Maslow, we can progress to higher needs only when lower needs are fulfilled in a chronological order. And he always says that you always need to start from the bottom, you always need to start from the most basic physiological need, and then only you can progress upwards. Right? So, that is a point that Maslow makes. Then, he also talks about another point, which is prepotency of needs. Now, what does it mean? Now, tell me one thing. Tell me one thing that if there is a person on the street who is actually homeless and they have not eaten anything from the past 2 days, right? They're feeling very hungry. They're feeling, let me complete the question first. This person is feeling very hungry, very thirsty. They have not eaten anything. They don't even have a house. Okay. And they unfortunately do not have a lot of people that they can talk to. And they also feel a little sad about the fact that nobody asks them how they are doing, and nobody spends time with them. Nobody gives them the due recognition or approval for whatever effort they might have made. So at that point, what will be of a greater concern to that person? What will be of a greater priority or importance to that person? The fact that they're hungry or the fact that nobody asks them, how are you doing? What is the more important thing for that person at that time, that I haven't eaten food since 2 days, or the fact that इसने मुझसे नहीं पूछा कि तुम कैसे हो, इसने मुझसे नहीं पूछा कि let's go out, let's have fun and all of that. So that is what is meant by prepotency of needs. It means that the lower needs that you have, they are going to be more important to you at any given moment unless they are reasonably satisfied before you can go on to a higher need. Okay, so it is as simple as that. If a homeless person hasn't eaten food, of course, for them, hunger will be more important than the fact that my friend didn't call me or I did not receive recognition from the government, so and so. Okay, that is prepotency of needs. And as we have seen previously, that we have to follow it in a step by step manner, in a chronological manner, that also means that no need can be skipped, right? And of course, Maslow has a lot of criticism. We will come back to the criticism later once we have understood his entire theory, and then I will ask you for the criticism. So for now, all the points that we have understood, I will be highlighting that. So succession progression, meaning that you will go in a chronological order. Only when lower needs are fulfilled, then you will go to the higher ones. And the fact that you always start from the bottom, you always start from physiological needs. And prepotency of needs, I just explained you that lower needs will be more important unless they are like until they are satisfied before you can go to the higher needs. No need can be skipped, and everybody wants to self-actualize. And the fact that he had taken qualitative interviews of these people. Okay, so that is all about Maslow's theory from this slide. What is chronological? Meaning step by step, one after the other. Now, I'm sure this is pretty basic for you. You must already be knowing what the basic five needs are. Physiological needs are the ones that are required for maintaining the basic homeostasis, basic balance of the body, basic survival needs. Food, water, oxygen, sleep, temperature regulation, sexual activity. These are your basic physiological needs. Once this is fulfilled, then only you will go to the safety needs. What are safety needs? All of us need to feel safe. All of us need to feel sure and confident and reassured of the fact that if there is something that goes wrong, I will be safe from that. Like, I have enough money in my bank account that if something goes wrong, if some emergency happens, if some health issue comes, then I can use that money for my treatment. Or if, let's say, it rains very, very heavily, and if a cyclone or something like that comes, then I will be protected from it because I have a shelter on top of my head, right? So, those things. And even if like something goes wrong, some emergencies there, I have the money, I have a roof on my head, I have the protection that I will remain safe from that. So basically, when we say freedom from fear and chaos, and the confidence that I will be okay, confidence that I am free from anything that might go wrong. So you need to be sure that मैं ठीक रहूंगी चाहे जो भी हो जाए. For that you need money, you need a secure and safe environment, you need shelter on top of your head also. You need health protection, like insurance that we say कि अगर कोई को कुछ हो जाता है तो मेरे पास health insurance है. Proper laws, structured surroundings. Then once this is fulfilled, then only you will go towards love and belongingness. All of us want to form social relationships with people, and all of us want to maintain close bonds also, whether it is a friend or friendship or like family, romantic relationship, social groups. Cockroach Janata Party is also an example of this. Why? Because हम सबको affiliation, attachment, interpersonal relationship, we need that. Then once this is there, we need esteem needs. What does esteem need mean? The need of getting recognition, the need of getting status, the need of getting appreciated by others and by yourself also. So I'd like to give my example here. So if I'm a teacher, my self-esteem would tell me, if I have a healthy self-esteem, I would tell myself that I teach well and I also have these qualifications, I have these many years of experience. That is to do with how competent I personally feel with teaching, the mastery that I have with teaching, which is why I actually like to read, keep on reading, keep on attending lectures, videos, and all of that myself, because As a teacher, I also want to feel competent. I also want to achieve mastery in the field of psychology because that makes me feel very well um, about myself. It helps me have the self-esteem with myself also. So that is self-esteem कि मुझे खुद में competent feel करना है, मुझे खुद में mastery achieve करनी है. But that is not just it. I also need recognition from my students. I need my students to come and acknowledge the fact that they like my teaching, that they understand when I teach, what I teach in class. I also need status that, let's say if I'm going out somewhere and students see me, at least some basic respect, basic admiration, acknowledgement of the efforts that you put. So that is status and recognition that you will get from others. So esteem needs is not just to do with the internal self-esteem that you have, that I teach well, I am competent, but it is also the esteem or validation I can say from others, the status and recognition that you do. And the more exams I crack, the more success I myself get, the more respect my students give me, the more esteem needs will also be higher. And finally, self-actualization. Self-actualization is basically, according to the previous hierarchy of need, it was the highest point that you could reach. It is that point where you have achieved your truest potential. Truest potential. You have completely moved towards growth. जो भी आपका maximum potential था, आपने कर लिया है वो, and you have finally become what you were capable of becoming. So when you are creative, you reach that kind of a state where you can reach your potential. When you are autonomous, as in when you're independent and nobody's pressurizing you, you can reach self-actualization. When you solve problems, when you look for meaning in life, when you approach things from a personal growth kind of a perspective, then you can reach self-actualization. Basically, it's that point. Like I can take the example of great people. Can you think of people who you feel might have reached self-actualization once in their lives? Like when we say it is a peak experience, it is finally becoming your highest potential. Think of some more people, and not about people who are no more specifically, but people who are alive right now. Think about more people. The ones who are alive right now, it will be more relevant. I want you to think of people who you feel might have achieved self-actualization in their life. Wow, me. Very nice. Akshay Kumar, okay. Amitabh Bachchan, okay. Okay, so for some reason, Virat Kohli comes to my mind because there are multiple times when he has achieved century while he's playing on ground. So, like, of course, he might have started from scratch only, just like the rest of the players. But then he worked so hard, he progressed so much towards growth that he achieved his truest potential. वो जितना अच्छा कर सकता था उसने किया. He became what he was capable of becoming. Now, do you think self-actualization is a state that once you have achieved there, you will remain self-actualized for the rest of your life, or is it like a limited time experience? Is self-actualization a limited time experience, or is it the fact that once you are self-actualized for the rest of your life, you will be self-actualized only? Self-actualization is a limited time experience. It is actually a peak experience that we can say. So I also sing, and there are times when I'm singing a difficult song. And while singing that difficult song, there are parts that are quite challenging to sing. But if I'm able to sing it properly, I reach a peak experience. Or um, this is a personal example. A few days back, we found out that the COET PG Psychology Air 1 was our student. So talking to her and cutting the cake with her was a peak experience for me and Manvi, right? So these are peak experiences basically. They are not lifelong. They come and they go. Yes. So that is about self-actualization. Now Maslow added some more needs later on: cognitive needs, aesthetic needs, and transcendence needs. What are cognitive needs? Basically, anything that gives you intellectual stimulation. So, when you watch documentaries or when you listen to podcasts or when you read a book and then you learn about something new that you did not know previously. or maybe attending essential series classes only. There are so many things that you don't know previously, but after attending the classes, you find out about it. So, the more you learn, the more you educate yourself, the more you question things, the more you gain insight. That is how intellectual stimulation happens. This is how your cognitive needs are met. So, your knowledge, key desire, understanding, curiosity, and exploration. Then we also have aesthetic needs. So, all of us want to look at surroundings that are very neat and clean, surroundings that are very organized, surroundings that are in symmetry. Like nobody likes to see a room that is messy, right? And there are a lot of reels on Instagram also where the room that the person is living in, it's so aesthetic. Like those kind of glasses and mugs they use for making their coffee, and their bed looks so pretty, very Pinteresty vibes basically. And it looks very pleasant to the eyes by looking at the Pinterest kind of rooms and the reels because we appreciate that. Or let's say when you go for a vacation, then the mountains or the beaches, they look so pretty. Or when you ask your friend to let's go to a cafe, they're like, find some aesthetic cafe where the surrounding is very beautiful. So that's the thing. Like all of us have need for beauty, symmetry, order, and harmony. And how can you fulfill that? Either by appreciating art, music, nature, design, and looking at balance around yourself. And lastly, we have transcendence needs. So, transcendence is like the highest level, it is even beyond self actualization. It is that point where you yourself have reached self actualization and now you're helping others achieve self actualization too. So, you achieve self actualization and you help others achieve self actualization too. So I was coming to your question here. I just wanted to explain this part first, but if it got answered already, that's nice. Yes. So that's like one of the differences between self-actualization and transcendence. In self-actualization, you are the only one who is actualized, but in transcendence, it's not just you who is self-actualized, but you're also guiding others into the same. So now tell me examples of people who help others achieve self-actualization. I am not self actualized myself. How can I help others achieve self actualization? I don't know what Salman Khan does. I only know that he kills innocent people on the road. Dalai Lama, I can take in as example because he is probably looks self actualized himself and he also guides others into the same. Spiritual leaders also because they have reached that point that they're guiding others also. Arjit Singh. Okay, he looks like someone who might have achieved self-actualization. I didn't know that he has a music school. If he's guiding others into the same, then yes, why not? And psychologists, so all psychologists are not self-actualized. Physics वाले सर, तो जाओ आप फिर उनकी क्लास ही अटेंड कर लो, यहाँ पे क्यों हो आप जब आपको उनको ट्रांसेंडेंस पे पहुंचाना है. Yes, just joking. So that is about the hierarchy of needs that Maslow has given. Okay. Now looking at the order, I've already told you ऐसे ही लिख दिया मैंने I don't listen. Yes, you should only listen to Cyclopedia and not physics wala sir. I am again joking. Please don't take that seriously. I wish Arjit Singh released more and more music. Some of his songs are really good. Okay, let's come back to this. So, order. Chronological order is very important. You can get questions on that. First, we have physiological needs, then safety needs, then belongingness, then esteem, then cognitive, then aesthetic, then self actualization, then transcendence needs. So, these three are the new ones. So, it's up to you how you want to remember the order. Actually, I or remembered it like cat, cognitive, aesthetic, transcendence. So, cat was my mnemonic. Yes. Now, this is again something new for you, and I have color coded it also. Okay. So this tells us about two different kind of needs that Maslow has classified it into. The yellow ones is actually known as deficiency needs, and the pink ones are for growth needs. Now, what is the difference between deficiency needs and growth needs? So, deficiency needs are those needs which are coming because there is a deficit of something, because there is a lack of something. And only when there is a lack of something, you will notice ना कि इस चीज की कमी है तो उसको पूरा करने के लिए कुछ करना पड़ेगा मेरे को. तो बताओ, जैसे बेसिक physiological needs. Basic physiological needs like hunger and thirst. When you are feeling thirsty, you will realize that there is a deficiency of water in my body. I am dehydrated. There is deficiency of food. So when there is deficiency of food and water, then only we are prompted to go and eat something and drink something. Next, let's say that there is a very bad storm, thunderstorm, lightning, and all that is coming outside, right? So you notice that there is deficit of safety around you. You're feeling scared. So that is why you need a roof on top of your head so that you can get the physical and the psychological security. You can avoid danger. So both of these things are occurring because there is a deficit of something, deficit of food and water, deficit of safety. Next, the third need, when I haven't spoken to anybody in 1 or 2 months, I start to feel very lonely. Again, there is a deficiency of social contact. Esteem needs. When I feel that I have not achieved anything in life, what am I even doing? It's been so long since I achieved some success. Others are doing better than me. Nobody even respects me or recognizes my effort. Again, deficiency of some kind of self esteem that you're having. So, all of these are your deficiency needs. All of them are arising because of some deficit. All of them are arising because of some kind of lack. And we only notice this जब हमें पता लगता है कि कमी हो रही है उस चीज की. So these are your deficiency needs. But we also have growth needs on the other hand. These growth needs are not arising from a place of deficit. Please know that they're arising from a place of growing. They are arising from the mindset that you want to reach your full potential. And as it's written here, these needs arise from desire to grow and reach full potential, not from a place of lack. And the more you achieve these needs, the more and more stronger they will start on getting. Right? So your intellectual stimulation is not coming from a place because you feel कि मुझे तो कुछ पता ही नहीं है, but it's coming from a place of wanting to learn more and becoming more learned and knowledgeable. Aesthetic needs also coming from a place because you want to appreciate music, you want to appreciate art around you. And both self-actualization and transcendence because you want to reach your fullest potential. So the main difference between deficiency needs and growth needs is the place where it's coming from. All your deficiency needs will come from a place of deficit. It will come from a place of some lack. But these are coming from a place of growth. Yeah, I want to do better, and not coming from a place of some lack. That's the only difference between this. Additional point, growth needs are also called B needs, which stands for being needs and meta needs. Right? So I've already taught this to you, but there's a table on the next place also. So deficiency needs, as we said, coming from some deficit, is coming from some deprivation, and we want to reduce that deficit and tension. Also called D needs, meaning deficiency needs, and being needs or growth needs, also called meta needs, not coming from lack or deficit, but coming more from growth, wanting to enhance your potential. And examples we have already seen. And we have also talked a little about self actualization and transcendence. Self actualization, achieving your full potential, becoming the highest of what you can become, reaching what you are capable of. And I was telling you that when Virat Kohli finally created the century, or when Arjit Singh sang the very difficult note, he might have reached a peak experience where he's intensely feeling joy, intensely feeling creativity, right? So, peak experiences is something that does happen in those who are self actualized. Now, do you think that every single person self actualizes? Or some people are not able to, like, they get stuck somewhere? Does everybody reach self actualization? Not everybody reaches self-actualization. Not everybody even wants to reach self-actualization. क्यों करना है? Some people are just satisfied with where they are, and not everybody wants to put in the effort and all to be at the top. So only small percentage of people reach because not everybody wants to. So this is a criticism also of Maslow's theory because वो तो कह रहे हैं ना कि everybody has this innate need, but in reality, not everybody wants to. Some people are just content with where they are. And I have taught you what meta needs are. We have discussed that. And once someone is not able to progress to the higher needs, then metapathology can happen, which is basically a state of frustration where you're just sitting with yourself and asking what is the point of all of this? What is the meaning of life? क्या ही फायदा है ये सब करने का? Right? Let's say your basic needs are met, but then you don't have friends, you don't have competence or mastery in anything. You're like, what is even the point of life? So that frustration that comes up, that is known as metapathology. So I hope that you have made your notes. I hope that you have understood everything from Maslow's theory. Now, in the CUET 2024 paper, they had asked that what are the qualities of a self-actualized person. That is why we have added a slide also on that. So, very self-explanatory points. People who are very realistic in their approach, who are very accepting of things rather than making unrealistic assumptions or not being able to accept things as they are. People who are very spontaneous, like being too rigid cannot always help you. So sometimes you need to be flexible and spontaneous. You need to be simple. Autonomy and independence. Like if someone is feeling controlled and under pressure, then it will be harder for them to reach self-actualization. Problem-centered orientation. Like if there is a problem, then do something to solve it, right? Use a task-focused approach and solve that problem instead of avoiding it. Creativity, we know what that is. Deep interpersonal relationships, like, we say the real friends rather than fake friends around you. Freshness of appreciation. Even if there is something very ordinary in your life, do appreciate that. Even if you see a nice flower on the way, appreciate that. Even experience ordinary events as something positive. And peak experiences, I told you about Virat Kohli's century. That's one example. Democratic character structure, meaning that regardless of who the other person is in front of you, respect them. Even if it is a server at a restaurant, even they also deserve respect. Also agree with someone. So don't agree, but like if someone is having a different opinion from you, at least hear them out. Make space for that opinion. Just be open to it rather than just being very rigid. Resistance to enculturation. So this basically means not getting influenced by what people are saying or doing very blindly. You need to use your own brain. You need to be able to make your own decisions rather than getting influenced by what anybody is saying or doing. Don't conform blindly to things that are happening around you. So that is all about Maslow that we had to do. And now we will move on to the next part of the session, which is to do with emotions. So as we are doing that, just tell me from 1 to 10, how much have you understood? Motivation. Okay, I want the rating from everybody. And this is quite simple topic. It is not as complex as the ones we have done in the previous classes. So I am seeing more 10 ratings. That's nice to see. And even if you're someone who's getting a 9, once you revise this, hopefully it will go up to a 10. Please know that Maslow's theory is not the only theory in the motivation chapter. Yes, it is an important theory, but apart from that, there are many more. Ones you will find in the textbook, some of them you will have to do outside the textbook also. Everything is not there necessarily. Multiple resource books you will have to refer to. एक ही में सब कुछ नहीं मिलता है हमें. तो वो भी equally important है. So don't say that कि class में Maslow कर रहा है, so I will do that only. I will leave others. You can very much get questions from other theories also. So with that, we are now starting with emotions. Now, what are emotions? All of us feel emotions, and we are psychology students, so we have a better understanding of emotions as compared to others also. So can you write a few emotions in the chat box that you must be aware of? joy, fear, shame, anger. Okay, anxiety is not an emotion. It is a separate feeling. Okay, guilt is an emotion. Disgust is an emotion. Yes. Embarrassment. Okay. Surprise is also an emotion. I'm quite surprised nobody wrote about that. Tired is not an emotion. I would say you can say exhaustion as a feeling. Okay. So let's come back to this now. So, what exactly are emotions? You know that emotions have different components to them. Whenever you feel scared, do you notice any changes that happen in your body when you're feeling fear? Let's say that your result is about to be announced, or you are about to sit for a mock test and you're feeling fear. So does that fear show up in your body? Do you notice any physiological changes in your body or nothing at all? Yes. So heart rate increases, your hands get cold, you feel dizzy, and you start sweating also, hands trembling, fast breathing. Yes. So all of the emotions have a physiological basis to them, meaning that if an emotion is there, it will bring some changes to your body. Your autonomic nervous system, basically, we will study more about this in biopsychology. You'll notice things like heart rate has increased, sweating, pupils start to dilate, breathing also changes. So every emotion has physiological arousal. It's not just fear. Every single emotion makes you feel something in the body. Then, when you are feeling fear, do you think it shows up on your face? Like someone can look at your face and say कि अरे तुम तो डर गए, अरे तुम क्या हो गया, तुम तो डरे डरे से लग रहे हो. What happened? You look very afraid when I look at your face. I'm talking to you, even if I can't see your face, but I'm talking to you on call. I can hear your voice. But from that voice, I can probably make out that you are feeling some emotion. When I'm talking to my friends on call, and from their tone, I can understand what their emotional state is, if they're feeling happy or if they're feeling low. All of us can. So, behavioral expression is all of the responses that we can observe on people very overtly on an outside basis, like the expression that they have, the tone of the voice, or any body posture or any gestures that they are making. Then, along with this, there is a cognitive and affective component also. So, when I ask a psychology student, how are you feeling? So, can I ask you right now, how are you feeling? Can you genuinely tell me how are you feeling right now? ये क्या normal? So, you have to answer in terms of emotions na. Answer in terms of emotions. How are you feeling right now? You're feeling happy, you're feeling hopeful. Any other responses that you might want to give, like something different, something varying, fear. Okay. So all of you are giving certain labels. How are you doing that? That requires you to have some inner awareness about yourself. Then, after you have that awareness, you label it, you interpret it. That this is the label that I'm giving to my emotions. This is the interpretation I'm giving to my emotions. This is how I make sense of it. This is how I give meaning to it. This is how I understand it. So, that is the cognitive component. The way how you label or interpret it, how you give meaning to it, that is cognitive component, right? So, these are the components of emotions. Now, what are emotions basically? Do you think emotions are long lasting or are they more short term? If you're feeling fear right now, are you gonna be feeling fear for the next 2, 3 days, or probably it will subside after some time? And even if someone is feeling sad, we know that the sadness passes after some time. Yes. But what about the intensity? If we feel sad and if we feel afraid, does that intensity feel very high to us at that moment, or does it feel like अरे ये तो कुछ भी नहीं है, ये तो छोटा सा है, इसको तो इग्नोर कर सकते हैं? What about the intensity? To us, when the emotion is there, the intensity feels quite high. It can be subjective for everybody, but looking at it theoretically, it is more intense as compared to mood. If you say mood is a different thing altogether, तो mood and emotion को अगर आप compare करोगे, emotion is much more intense in the intensity and it is quite brief also in terms of the duration. Now tell me that is emotion something that just pops up automatically for you, or is it something that takes some time to show up? Like, let's say your um, friend talked to you very badly, your friend didn't reply to you, so you feel sad. Did the sadness come as a very automatic response, or it came after 3-4 hours of that happening? Or your favorite football team lost? Yesterday I saw that Arsenal has won the football thing, so the fans were very happy. So did the happiness come automatically, or did it take them 1 or 2 business days to get that emotion? Immediate response. So emotions are intense, they are brief, they're automatic responses, and all the components that we discussed, physiological, subjective, meaning, cognitive and affective, behavioral expression, all of that will be there. Yes, and we can express our emotions internally or externally also. Internally, let's say that you're processing it internally, you're trying to understand how you feel about it, what you think about it. And externally is like when you show it on your face, when you talk to someone, when you vent it out. That is about emotions. Now we will be moving towards the theories of emotions. And a lot of people have their own opinions as to how we feel emotions, as to how the process of emotions take place. And there are different theories. Each theory has its own process, its own step by step chronology, I can say. And there are a lot of theories of emotions here also. But today we will be focusing mainly on the James Lange theory of emotion. And before we get into James Lange theory of emotion, I will explain you the common sense theory of emotion, because then it will give you some context. Okay. So I want you to picture that one day you went to the garden, and in the garden you were expecting that cute babies and cute dogs will be there. But then suddenly you notice that a very big dog that is very ferocious, very scary, he's not even on a leash. He is running towards you, exactly towards you, with very big eyes, with a wide open mouth, with long teeth. He is running towards you, right? When you see something like that, what is it that happens automatically? क्या होता है ऑटोमेटिकली जैसे ही आप उसको आपकी तरफ भागते हुए देखते हो? Automatically fear comes na when you see that dog coming towards you. And then once you have fear, that is when your body, your physiological arousal will start to happen. Okay, so this is the common sense theory of emotion. It is one of the most oldest theories of emotions, the most primitive sense theories of emotions, and it is not followed that much these days because it's quite outdated. But according to this theory, what happens is that first the stimulus will be there, then that stimulus will automatically lead to the emotion, and then that emotion will lead to some changes in your body, and then you will run away. And this running away is the behavior. So किसी भी थ्योरी को समझने के लिए उसकी जो क्रोनोलॉजी है वो हमें समझनी पड़ेगी. So इसमें सबसे पहले स्टिमुलस आएगा, then after stimulus emotion will come, which is feeling afraid. Then once you feel afraid, your body will start to have all of these arousal and changes, and then only you will run away from there. That is the behavioral response. So that is what common sense theory says. But James Lange does not believe in this, and they have given their own interpretation of the theories of emotions, how they believe emotions come up. Okay, so let's understand what James Lange is saying. So now let's go back to the same garden and let's once again visualize that the dog is coming towards you. So you are there in the garden, you're looking at the flowers, but then suddenly this dog comes running towards you. The minute you see this dog running towards you, the very first thing that will happen is that your autonomic nervous system will get aroused and your body will start to undergo the different changes, whether it is sweating or it is increased breathing or whether it is increased heart rate. All of these things will start to happen the minute that you see the dog is running towards you. And after all of these physiological changes have happened, then only the second response that will be there is that you will feel the emotion. So what change do you notice from the previous theory of emotion to this theory of emotion in terms of the order? This is extremely important. Once you understand the order, then only these theories will make sense. So compare and contrast the common sense theory of emotion and the James Lange theory of emotion and tell me what is different in terms of the order. Here, the arousal is first, and then the emotion happens after that. And Ria, we will not use the word interpretation here because interpretation is a word which is very specific to cognitive theories of emotions. So, to reword what you are saying, we can call that physiological arousal comes before in James Lange. And Vaishnavi, this is not happening simultaneously. Again, simultaneously is a word that is specific to Cannon-Barth theory of emotion. So, don't mix up all the theories. PS, yes, James Lange arousal first and emotion after. Yeah, exactly. So if I can represent it in terms of order for you, in James Lange, what is happening? Stimulus is coming first. Then after stimulus, the arousal is happening. The physical arousal is happening. And then emotion is taking place. That is what James Lange theory says. But common sense was the opposite of it. What did common sense say? Common sense said that first there will be stimulus, and then that will automatically lead to the emotion, and then that will lead to the physiological arousal, and then that will lead to behavioral response. So once you understand the order, then everything will make sense. So this is James Lange, and the one that's written below is Cannon-Barth. Sorry, not Cannon-Barth, common sense, slip of tongue. Yes. Okay, so that is about it. I have explained the main crux to you. Let's read what the slide is saying. This is given by William James and Carl Nance. This is the name of the people. And in this theory, if physiological arousal is coming first, can I say that emotions are happening as a result of physiological arousal? This physiological arousal pehle aaya na, and then it has caused emotions. Physiological arousal came first, then it led to emotions. That is why, look at this red box that is here. Emotions are the result of physiological responses to external stimuli. Why? Because first stimuli is there, then it led to physiological response, then that physiological response led to emotion. So this red box summarizes this entire theory in very nice manner. Okay, step-by-step representation first, stimulus you will perceive, then it will lead to physiological arousal. Autonomic nervous system basically comes under the sympathetic nervous system only. You will go under fight-flight response, then experience of emotion will happen. And I'm cutting the word interpretation here because that is very specific to cognitive theories. Okay, we can just say that emotion is experienced. Yes. And I'll try to explain this point also. Maybe you might not understand it that in depth because you need to have knowledge of biopsychology first. But those who know biopsych might understand this. Okay, so tell me that which part of the nervous system is majorly responsible for arousal or fight flight? Is it the central nervous system or the peripheral nervous system? Again, repeat the question. Which part of the nervous system is responsible for fight, flight, and physiological arousal of the body? It is PNS, peripheral nervous system. That is why it's called the peripheral theory of emotion. And with this, we have covered the James Lange theory also. Again, remember that these two are not the only theories in emotion chapter. There are many more theories. And once students do all these theories together, they just get very confused that what is the difference between these theories and what is the order and what's happening first, what's happening later. That's why in our PPTs, we have made it very clear through diagrams that this is what happens, then this is what happens. And in the table also, we have given like a step-by-step representation so that you don't mess up in the order. And even when I teach, you've seen that I provide for you in class and tell you step by step, so no mixing up is there. So how can you join our classes? So basically, you can reach out to me or Manvi from the WhatsApp groups. You must have attended this from some of our WhatsApp groups. So we both are the admins of the groups. You can reach out to us from there. Or I'm also dropping a number in the chat box. It is Manvi's number, and you can actually contact her if you need any information or details about the course. We'll send the link of joining on the group also. So her number is 95606 and 07537. So you can contact her. Okay, now I see MCQ practice is there in front of us. And as we know that no preparation is complete without MCQ revision. It is the foundation of what helps us understand how much we have grasped and how much we have not. Okay, so the first question is there in front of you. So you have to identify and tell that which of the following statements are correct in the James-Lange theory. And CUET asks a lot of questions like these. So you have to evaluate all statements. You have to ask which is correct, which is not correct. So which is correct regarding James-Lange? Let's go step by step. Let's take it one by one. The first statement, it is called the peripheral theory. Is that correct or not? Yes or no? You can just say yes or no. Yes, it is correct. Just now we saw that. Emotion precedes physiological arousal, meaning emotion is coming first and physiological arousal is coming second. Is that right or no? No, that is not right. So in which theory this mindset is there? That emotion is coming first. Yeah, that is common sense. Okay, next. It supports the facial feedback hypothesis. Now, facial feedback hypothesis is another theory. Basically, it just means that if you are putting in this expression, then it will tell your brain that, hello, you should be happy. And you will feel more and more happy. But if you are putting this kind of expression on your face, that means you are sad. So does it support the facial feedback hypothesis? It was written somewhere in the slide if you looked at it carefully. Yes, it does. Next, it emphasizes the sympathetic nervous system. Does it? Or does it not? And remember, I told you that autonomic nervous system is a part of the sympathetic nervous system only. I said it the other way around by mistake. It is like this. Autonomic nervous system is the broader one, and here we will get the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. Yes. So yes, it does. So 1, 3, and 4 are correct, which means B is the correct answer. Okay, let's move to the next one. Reason assertion also very common to CUET. So in Maslow's hierarchy, higher needs emerge only after lower needs are completely satisfied. And need satisfaction in Maslow's theory is relative, not absolute. Absolute का मतलब आपको पता होगा. Absolute is something which is set in stone. Like I said it, so it is like this. It cannot change at all from situation to situation, from person to person. So what do you think is the answer of this? Maybe think about yourself. Is need satisfaction, do you have the same needs in every situation, or do you and your friend have the same needs? So give me one answer. You are getting confused between C and A. Okay. So in Maslow's hierarchy, higher needs emerge only after lower needs are completely satisfied. Is that true? Just this much. Is it yes or no? This point. Yes, that is correct. There's nothing wrong in that. What about this? Do you have the same needs in every situation? Do you and your friends have the same needs in every situation? No, need is something that can vary from situation to situation, from person to person. So A is correct. R is also correct by mistake. I wrote a cross there. Need satisfaction is relative. It is not fixed. So both of them are correct. Okay, let's move to the next one. So, which of the following is least consistent with intrinsic motivation? It's very simple. If you have understood, you can solve. Remember that car gift example? Parents said that if you study, then I will give you the car. And if the car is taken away, the child will stop studying. Okay, let's look at it one by one. In intrinsic motivation, the child genuinely wants to study science. So, are they studying science in the absence of parental gift? Yes or no? Is the child studying science in the absence of whether or not they will get a gift from parents? Yes. Activity is performed for its inherent satisfaction. Is the child studying science because they themselves enjoy studying and they get the satisfaction? Yes. Are they studying out of interest and curiosity? Yes. And lastly, engagement is influenced by contingent outcomes. Is studying influenced by car gift? No. So that's why this will be answer. I will continue studying because I enjoy it and not because you are giving me the car or not. So D will be the correct answer. Next. So which stage is concerned with respect, status, and recognition? Yes, esteem needs. Is esteem needs a type of D need or B need? Tell D need or B need? D need. Is it a physiological need or a psychological need? Yes, it is a psychological need. What can be the two parts of esteem needs? I gave you my personal example, so I hope you remember. Yes, self and others. Feeling competent within yourself that you have mastery over this thing. And you also want recognition from others. Okay, yes, that is about it. Next. So the need for knowledge and understanding belongs to, yes, this is pretty simple. Cognitive needs. Whenever there is intellectual stimulation involved, then you know we are talking about cognitive needs. Okay, next. According to Maslow, lower level needs dominate behavior due to the principle of, we have discussed this also, prepotency. So why are we saying A? Maslow did not even talk about homeostasis, right? Homeostasis is something that was talked a lot by Clark Hull, and he has given the drive reduction theory. ड्राइव रिडक्शन थ्योरी ही अपने आप में होम्योस्टैसिस पे बनी है. So this is prepotency. Like if a person is hungry, they're starving, and their friends have not called them, they would care more about quenching their thirst and eating food rather than thinking about the friend at that point. That is okay. My bad लिखने की क्या जरूरत है? All of us make mistakes sometimes. Just learn from it and don't repeat it. Okay. Now identify the correct statement about growth needs. This is also very simple. Okay. Yes. What is the other name of growth needs? Meta needs. And B stands for being needs. Okay. What did I tell you? Is it coming from a place of lack? Then from which place is it coming? It is coming from a place of growth because the person wants to grow more and more and achieve their highest potential, desire to grow. Okay. Is it so that once you have achieved the B needs, they will stop or will they become more and more stronger? Yes, they keep on becoming stronger. Stronger once met. Of course, they promote continued development. They are not disappeared. They keep on increasing and becoming stronger. It is not arising from deprivation and tension. They are not limited to physiological functioning. So, can you type and tell me what are the growth needs that we have studied in today's class? The first one is esteem need a growth need or a deficiency need? Yes, so the ones who are using my mnemonic, I'm glad because तभी तो मैं देती हूँ आपको mnemonics ताकि आप यूज कर पाओ उसको वो भूल जाने के लिए थोड़ी है. Yes. So now tell me, is esteem needs an example of growth needs or deficiency needs? Yeah, esteem needs will not come here. So this is starting from cognitive needs. Then you move on to aesthetic needs. Then you will move on to self-actualization. And then you will move on to transcendence. So these are your B needs. And the ones below that are deficiency needs. Caste बोल सकते हो, cat बोल सकते हो. Cat new वाले हैं and caste you can say. Okay, next question. Which component of emotion involves autonomic nervous system changes? Yes, physiological arousal, that's very simple. Which component involves labeling and interpretation of that emotion? Okay, so subjective experience में आपका affective and cognitive दोनों आ जाएगा. कॉग्निटिव के अंदर आपका लेबलिंग आ जाएगा एंड इंटरप्रिटेशन आ जाएगा एंड अफेक्टिव विल बी मोर लाइक योर लिव्ड एक्सपीरियंस विद इट हाउ यू फील इट and we have discussed behavioral expression already. It is to do with the vocal tone, the gestures, the expressions, body language, all of that. Okay, next question. Okay, I think that is it. Yes, for today's class. Yes. So, how many did you get correct? How many did we solve and how many did you get correct? There were 8 questions that we solved. So those who are getting all correct, that is a very nice thing. For those who are making mistakes, please revise this because ये इतना मुश्किल नहीं है कि हम इसमें mistakes करें. ये काफी आसान है. We don't want to get wrong here. So yes. So that is about it from my side for today's class. Hope this was helpful. We will be meeting on Sunday for continuing with the series, new topic. And if anybody wants to enroll in the course, they can um, reach out to Manvi on the given number that I've shared in the chat box. Or we will also share the details on the WhatsApp group so you can directly enroll from there as well. And let me also type the website that we have. It's www.cyclopedia.in. And directly, if you copy paste that in the browser, you will get all the details. We have a dedicated course page for the registration. And memory mock is closing by night. So if you have not attempted that, then please do so. It is for you only. Once this is closed, after that only we'll open the next mock. Yes. Okay, you're welcome. Last date to register. ऐसे like if you want to get the early bird discount, then you can enroll as soon as possible for the MA clinical course. Okay. So MA clinical course will be launched by the end of this month itself. So once we do that, we will let you know about that as well. Yes. Okay. Okay, Uzma, we actually do not take career guidance sessions because the focus of Essential series is teaching and concept clarity. So, but I'll just respond to you in brief because you've said that. So, if you have completed BSc Psychology, then you can follow the old path, 3 plus 2 plus 2. Because recently the Delhi High Court judgment says that the new guidelines do not have to apply to existing students, it will only apply to class 12 students. So you do 3 years bachelor's, then you can do 2 years master's, and then 2 years MClin Sci, which was previously MPhil. You can do that. Okay. All right. So on that note, let's close today. It was fun teaching you, like it is always, and I'll see you all on Sunday. Okay. Bye. Take care, everyone.